I'm not guilty of failing to monitor my staff. I'm guilty of trusting someone.
Clearly, Rick Pitino feeling that trust was betrayed. Hello and welcome into CN2 Sports. I'm Andrew Chernoff. We now know more about what allegedly took place in regards to the Louisville men's basketball sex scandal. U of L releasing the NCAA notice of allegations against the program stemming from the alleged sex scandal that took place in between 2010 and 2014. Overall, the NCAA charges Louisville with 4 Level 1 violations. Level 1, the highest level of violations. The first charge is that former Cards assistant and director of basketball operations Andre McGee provided and/or arranged impermissible benefits in the form of adult entertainment, sex acts, and/or cash to at least 17 then men's basketball prospective and/or current student athletes. The second allegation is that McGee withheld relevant information from the NCAA investigation, violating ethical conduct policies in the process. The third allegation introduces a new name to the scandal in Brandon Williams, a former Cards assistant who also failed to provide relevant information and phone records to investigators. And the final allegation is that head coach Rick Pitino failed to monitor Andre McGee and is presumed responsible for the violations outlined in the first allegation. Louisville saying it intends to dispute this allegation in its response to the NCAA.
I am grateful to the NCAA for their efforts in this case. It is important for the truth to be known and for us to deal responsibly with the results. This disturbing behavior is certainly not reflective of our core values as an institution.
You know, it's been a tough year. We all know that. It's been a tough year with our basketball program. This was a big setback to us. We made a mistake. A member on our staff made a terrible mistake. We said from day one, we found out we would own it. And I think we've done that.
A lot obviously included in the notice of allegations, but plenty not included in there as well, which is worth mentioning. The NCAA not alleging any of the following. It says there was not a lack of institutional control, that Louisville did not fail to monitor as an institution, and Coach Pitino did not fail to promote an atmosphere of compliance. Again, though it does allege that Pitino failed to demonstrate he monitored Andre McGee, something that the university will fight.
I've worked beside Coach Pitino for over 15 years. And most of you in this room know him very, very well. And as the athletic director here, I've asked it to myself a million times, should he have known? I've come to the conclusion that he could not have known. No matter what he did or how close he is to his players and staff, he could not have known. This activity was clearly kept from him. Knowing how he would have reacted if he had known, I believe that Andre acted furtively, doing everything he could to keep this away from a coach who would never tolerate it.
Rick Pitino also saying something similar today at the press conference, telling everyone he had no idea that this alleged sex scandal was taking place in Billy Minardi Hall and other Louisville hotels.
For the past 30 some odd years as a coach, I believe in the NCAA. The people who investigated this were highly professional. They were fair. Do I agree with the failure to monitor one of my people? No, absolutely not, because I over-monitor my staff. I believed and trusted them. And all head coaches believe and trust in their assistant coaches because it's what coaches do. We're there for the student athlete. And this young man made a very big mistake, and we apologize for his mistakes. We apologize to our fans, to our university, many, many times. We don't believe in any of this. And most important, that dorm was built for a special person. And things were done that were not special, and we apologize for that.
We bring in our own Lindsay Goff, who was at the press conference today. Lindsay, so many things discussed. What's the big takeaway from this afternoon?
Well, I think there's a couple. First and foremost, it is as ugly as we thought it was. Sexual acts was explicitly listed in the NOA multiple times with dollar amounts attached to that. So that's Never a good sign when you're referring to any NCAA program or really any program in general. The NCAA findings must have been close to what U of L's internal investigation found, though. Nobody really seemed too surprised by this. They were all kind of like, this is what they had already seen, this is what they already knew. So I don't think it was a surprise. I think that everything was pretty similar to what they already thought. As you heard in that soundbite, Pitino expressed why he was so disappointed. Minardi Hall is an important place to him, obviously. It means something to him, and he trusted McGee as an assistant, so I think he was very disappointed. They did make it very clear that they are going to appeal that Pitino did not properly monitor Andre McGee, and I think that's a big takeaway. They said that they kind of wanted to get this in the past, but they are going to appeal this.
Now, another big discussion point today, how this affects Rick Pitino's overall legacy, if at all. Will it, Lindsay?
I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, there's no doubt about that. He turned Kentucky around, he's turned Louisville around, he's won national championships at 2 schools. So in the basketball aspect, maybe not, but he does have his name tied to another scandal as well. So 2 sex scandals, it's never a good look. I think that, you know, he doesn't think it's going to affect his legacy. He actually said that today, so we'll play that sound for you.
For the last 30 some odd years, I've been extremely compliant to every NCAA rule because I don't believe in an unfair advantage. I never asked a shoe company to help me out with a player, but we're dealing with a very difficult thing that will be in our rearview mirror very soon because we've been transparent, we tell the truth, and by telling the truth, your problems become part of your past. So I'm not interested in my legacy when it comes to that.
So he says he's not interested in his legacy, but of course his legacy isn't really for him to decide. It's more for the public to decide. So, you know, that could be years down the road before we really know the answer to that. But for now, I think yes.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Now, of course, another question becomes what happens from here. Louisville has 90 days to respond to the NCAA. Once it does, the NCAA has 60 days to respond to U of L. The feeling is that maybe next spring at the earliest, the school will meet with the Committee on Infractions. U of L self-imposed postseason ban last year and gave itself some recruiting sanctions. When this ends, will there be more punishment for the Cards, Lindsay?
You know, that's another great question that we might not know the answer to. A lot of it was redacted, so a lot of the things that were redacted might impact what happens in the future, whether they were recruits or current athletes, that sort of thing, and we don't know. There could be a potential suspension for Pitino. I think that people are feeling like that's the most likely. I've seen everything estimated from 5 to 10. I think at Syracuse it was 8.
Yes.
So something similar to that probably. They've already had their postseason ban, and people seem to believe that that's not going to happen again, but it could. And then if the players involved were current student athletes and involved in that 2013 team, which is likely, this went on from 2010 to 2014, there is potential for that 2013 national title to be vacated, but they don't think that that's likely.
Of course, let's see what you, the fans, had to say about this. We asked you on Twitter if there will be any more punishments handed down to Louisville when it's all said and done. 43% of you said no more punishments will be given to U of L. 29% think there will be more sanctions and or suspensions. And okay, Lindsay, before we go, we read a lot today in this notice of allegations. We heard a lot from the University of Louisville. What questions are still out there? There's obviously a lot.
Well, there's several. One I think I have and a lot of people have is, how did you have institutional control if you didn't know about this? It's a pretty big thing to be going on. And then what players or recruits became U of L student athletes? Which ones were student athletes? That's going to really impact whether it's a recruiting violation or extra benefits. The specific amount of money and the acts attached to it, that's all a very big deal. Where did the money come from? That's another thing that's important to consider. And we might never know. The NCAA can't make Andre McGee talk. Now, if it becomes a criminal investigation because prostitution is illegal, then the law has a little bit more stipulation with that. There's not a statute of limitations in Kentucky, so that's something to consider as well.
We'll see. Plenty of questions. Lindsay, thank you so much for
you.
everything today. Appreciate it. And of course, for the latest updates on the story, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and be sure to check out our website, mycn2.com. The news surrounding the men's basketball program comes one day before the Cards take part in their final red-white scrimmage of the season. Tip time is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock inside the KFC Yum Center. It will be the final chance for fans to see U of L until its first exhibition game against Kentucky Wesleyan on November 3rd. More news surrounding the Louisville men's basketball team, this time in the form of preseason rankings, where USA Today coaches poll has the Cards ranked heading into the season. Plus, homecoming week, how the Louisville football team's defense is preparing for Saturday's opponent, the North Carolina State Wolfpack.